AITA for selling the house my brother and his family live in. Short and simple, I think. A few years ago my brother needed help. I let him move into one of my rental properties and we did it all legal. Lease agreement and everything. Because I was renting to him at a break-even point, we agreed that he was responsible for all the maintenance of the house and yard. Well, he has 4 kids. And the hot water tank isn't enough for his family and he wants a new one. I told him to go ahead. He then proceeded to take the cost of the hot water tank and installation of that month's rent. I reminded him of our agreement. He said he wasn't making improvements to my property for free. I said that the old hot water tank was fine and he made the decision to replace it. Big argument, and I didn't want to fight, so I said that he was not allowed to make any further changes to the house without my explicit agreement. So he stopped doing maintenance as a protest. The house itself is not pretty, but it is solid. It is old and the wiring in it was not meant for all the modern electronics we have. He wanted to add a new breaker box and run more outlets. I said no thanks. I cannot afford that since I'm not making any money on the house. He started getting bitchy about it and the rent started getting paid late. I tried talking to him, but he said that he had to buy some stuff for the house and he was low on cash. So I sold the house. While the house itself isn't great, it is in an older part of the city and the property itself is a quarter of an acre. Every time a house sells in the neighborhood, it is snapped up by developers and tuned into multi-family units. Or one guy built a McMansion on his land. I know a lot of the developers and I didn't even need to list the house to have it sold in less than a week. My brother found out when he was served with an eviction notice. He called me to ask WTF. So I told him that the house was causing me headaches and I had an opportunity to make some money. And I took it. He said I should have offered him a chance to buy it. I said that he was having trouble making rent. How was he going to qualify for a mortgage? He said I'm an asshole and that he has the money. He was waiting to make me an offer. I asked him if he had money, why he was late on his rent. He started badmouthing me to all our family. A few of them took his side and tried to say I was being an asshole, so I offered all of them a chance to clear his debt to me if they wanted to share their opinion. None of them took me up on the offer. My parents are on my side and they said I shouldn't have rented to him in the first place. I feel bad for my sister-in-law and the kids, but I'm not going to spend the rest of my life subsidizing his. And this is why we don't mix business and family. This is complicated. You were very generous with your brother who kept taking from you. The only way the water tank thing makes sense is if he believed that you weren't doing him a favor, that every landlord rents at break-even rates to family and family still gets the full tenant benefits package. Things escalated. And you wanted out of the deal. And the house. That made sense. When you made the decision to sell, you should have let him know. Both to allow him to purchase it. Maybe he could have swung the loan. And to give him the largest window possible for moving. Unless you feel there was a risk he'd damage the property to sabotage the sale. That's something you should have done. Now, are you in awe for not doing it? Your inference that he didn't have the ability to buy the house is presumptuous. But pretty reasonable. I'll give you a pass on that. I'd have assumed the same. So now it's down to, were you in awe did not giving him more warning? I can give you a pass before the sale. But after the sale, he should have found out from you. You're in awe for letting him find out via the new owner's eviction notice. I want to be clear, you were very generous. And at all previous times weren't in awe. But that one choice changed the rating to esh. Meaning your brother is obviously in awe. But you're a little bit of one too for not telling him you sold the house he's living in. Esh. I'm a landlord. Maintenance of a property is not the same as upgrades to a property. As a LL, you have to keep the property in a good state of repair, so if the electrics aren't up to snuff, guess what? You need to replace them. If the hot water tank doesn't do the job because it's old and too small for the property, same thing, you need to replace it. From what you've said, your brother agreed to upkeep the maintenance of the property, which where I live includes yard work, snow and ice removal, switching out light bulbs, maybe painting, anything that isn't a capital expense on your taxes. Something like a panel upgrade is 100% not maintenance and can also be claimed against your taxes. Expecting him to cover that kind of cost for your property is unreasonable, especially because you would have had to do those upgrades for any other tenants unless you were okay with renting a property that didn't meet your legal obligations as a landlord. You were good to give him an at-cost deal, but all that means is you weren't turning a profit, so the property wasn't costing you any money. So he was paying off your mortgage for you. He was doing you a favor in that sense, as you told him he was no longer allowed to make changes without permission. It sounds like he's done a decent amount of renovation for you, which is actually a huge favor. He should have paid his rent on time. Info. What was the break-even rent? Also, how old were the electronics and water heater? I ask as I had a landlord who made the same claims as you despite there being an electrical fire in one of the bedrooms. It was also one of those not pretty houses he assured me was fine internally. It was not fine internally. Ash, you of course have the legal right to do what you did. Turning your brother's family out on the street with no advance notice is one of those things that makes you ta even if you are legally in the right. He should have stuck with the agreement or renegotiated a standard agreement with standard improvements and higher rent. Ash, but you're worse in my opinion. Sure, your brother should have kept up his end of the deal. He sounds like he was happy to push your limits and take advantage of the situation. However, you mention having multiple rental properties. You're buddies with developers. You're clearly doing just fine. Yet you thought your only option for dealing with this was to sell the house without telling him or his partner? Can you imagine how scary it can be to receive an eviction notice? As a landlord, probably not. But to know that they weren't even given a heads up of what was happening sounds so awful for them. You should have spoken to your brother and his partner and said, "Hey, I'm glad I was able to help you out in a tough spot, but this arrangement isn't working for me anymore and I'm planning on selling the house. Let me know how much notice you need to find a new place. Or if you're interested in making an offer on this place." That's basic courtesy for any tenants. Emo, but especially for family. Esh, imagine finding out your brother sold the house you live in via an eviction notice. You should have told him. You're not wrong for selling it. But not telling him? Asshole move. He obviously sucks for not keeping his end of the deal. Esh, you should have told him you were selling. Not to give him a chance to buy, just to let him know. There's a big difference between keeping someone informed that they'll be losing their home and subsidizing their lifestyle. Were you afraid you'd give in and help out more if he had a chance to say something? If so, that's a you problem. Your brother sucks for the reasons you mentioned. NTA. But your parents are right. He was playing games. No good deed goes unpunished. Rolling my eyes at your concern for the wife and kids you just made homeless. YTA for not telling them. YTA because you didn't even tell him you'd sold the house. You got mad at your brother and took it out on his whole family? Also, you're a landlord, so you're an AA by default. And the comments about not wanting to modernize the electrical and water tank in your old property makes you sound like you operate in the slumlord end of the market. Ash, the reason you didn't warn your brother is out of spite. That makes you an asshole. His requests and attitude were unreasonable, which makes him an asshole. YTA. Not for selling the house. You have every right to do so, and there is no necessity to give him first shot, or right of refusal or anything like that. You're the A for letting him find out via an eviction notice. Esh. You totally have a right to sell the property, but you should have given him notice and talked to him before he found out in an eviction notice. Esh. Renting to family, friends is drama right out of the gate. You complicated it by renting it for break-even price and expecting him to do maintenance. He sucks because obviously paying late doesn't solve anything. But you still should have sat him down, said this isn't working like this, either pay market rates or buy me out or I'm putting it for sale. You tried to do a good thing. He took advantage of it, but then you played the A card by selling without even a discussion first. It's very hard for me to sympathize with a landlord. LMAO. ESH. Your brother is an asshole for obvious reasons. You are also an asshole for not giving him a heads up. He has 4 children who have done nothing wrong and shouldn't have their home ripped out from under them without time to adjust. As someone currently allowing my brother and his family to live rent-free in a house I own, this post and comments are enlightening. Esh. He was an ass. But you should have told him you were selling the house to give him time to figure out something else. You've basically made Sil and the kids victims in your petty little feud. Qualified YTA. Replacement of a hot water tank, with your permission, is not considered maintenance. You should have clarified that as was not to come out of the rent. You can sell your property for any reason at any time. However, he is family. He deserved to learn of the potential sale, let alone the actual sale, from you. That is where YTA. It's uncomfortable, yes, but you did make the mistake of renting to him in the first place. With family there should be no assumptions because that will only get you screwed.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.